Hi. So, since there seems to be a hostile takeover of every aspect of my life going on right now, I decided to do a bit of a compilation video because the same person who can tell you that my bathroom, which is supposed to be private, smells like whale puke the day after I get sick, has also preemptively copyrighted a second show I had been working on in the privacy of my own computer. But because she's got more powerful sponsors to take this out from under me, you'll never get to hear a couple new conspiracy theories that I had. Is Three Eye Atlas a preventable cataclysm? Did they ever stop the twin experiments? Is all the daycare fraud really just shell companies to fund operatives to stalk and harass targeted individuals? Are all those targeted individuals from the GATE program? Did Jeffrey Epstein have all that inexplicable money and power because he was a long lost royal? Or maybe not the world's biggest predator and maybe an ancient watcher making a naughty or nice list? Moonlighting as a genetic engineer in one great big experiment of duality. But instead, I'll leave you with this. I've always found the story of Cassandra of Troy very fascinating, and its correlation to what's known in modern times as the Cassandra complex. Me personally, I think it's all a matter of perspective, and in this particular case, perception. A devout priestess of Athena and a gifted seer. It became known that she had an accurate vision and perception, but was deemed a mad woman, a liar. They called her every name in the book. In some accounts, it was a curse from Apollo after she rejected him, fated to utter true prophecies never to be believed. And she warned about the Trojan horse. She even tried to attack it and they stopped her. She fled to the temple of Athena and was essayed and unalived. The Trojans were more trusting of a foreign gift than they were by the increasing concerns raised by one of their own. She was locked away in a tower and no one wanted to be known to associate with a crazy woman. Perception is a funny thing because now it can be so easily manipulated. And that's why it's important to have a good one of yourself and be confident in who you are. And no one believed why she wouldn't want to marry Apollo, so she must be insane. But I mean, it's a story as old as time. Just lock her in a tower and call her crazy. The way I see it, calling someone crazy is like picking low-hanging fruit. Although it can be true, there are just as many people deemed crazy for seeing right through or telling the truth about situations or people. I think more accurately, it happens when someone wants to make sure another person won't be believed because there's really no better way to do it. So maybe it's important to get to know people, and even if they're not your kind of person, still doesn't make them crazy. And if someone is saying that about another person, maybe it's worth seeing what that person has to say. But hey, what do I know? Can only speak to the view from my tower. That I was on to something. Just noticed my hairkerchief looks like the gypsy version of a tinfoil hat. Appropriate because I'm about to make some wild correlations. I personally miss the days when being hacked regularly wasn't a thing and I felt like I had some level of privacy. I've just come to terms with my life is like the Truman Show. Maybe that's why the quests of power all seem so ruthless now. Covers what hasn't been earned on merit and was taken by force to begin with. Force isn't always loud or physical. And let's be clear that I don't mean honest mistakes or things that weren't ill intended. There's such a concerning incline in psychological abuse, which has further reach and impact in the era of social media, wanting to be left alone and not wanting to be stalked should really be a fair request. The lengths people will go to in an effort to keep another ensnared in their traps of accountability avoidance. How instead of acknowledging mistakes, it turns into a pretty grotesque web of lies. That's why it's important to A, tell the truth, and B, own your decisions. You don't just get to do it and then pin the consequences on someone else because you don't want to deal with it or because you thought you'd get away with it. That's not fair to the person that's actually been telling the truth and trying to live right. What I've found to be incredibly alarming is how easy it is for the lies to be accepted and the truth to be ignored. Even worse, if in the beginning the whole thing gets started by someone truly trying to hurt someone else to cover up something that they did. Especially if you have historically displayed traits within a certain cluster of personality type. Vulnerable, easy prey with likely no way out, not likely to be believed, and not likely to have a good support system. Basically, a playground for them. What are you supposed to do? Just sit and allow a predator to ruin your life day by day, year after year, until you're gone or you're insane? Anyone wanting to look virtuous for a cause can be sucked into a mob based on a faulty foundation, especially in the digital age where that's so common, particularly with sextortion. Communication, telephonic invasion. If a mob of trolls becomes so large or so obsessed, anyone who does try to disengage or decide that they no longer want to participate becomes another victim. It's a vicious cycle in a smear campaign situation where someone tries to completely destroy every aspect of your independent life for their personal gain and ego strokes is largely rooted in lies. And innocent bystanders tend to get roped in under these false pretenses. The more repetitive the need to try to prove something that has been repeatedly proven false, the more insane the whole situation just becomes. Hi, there's been a lot going on and a lot to process, so I've just been trying to do that mostly offline. I don't really use social media or anything outside of this. And I'm not really sure how my reach is as far as it is when my analytics aren't reflecting that. So I think it's got something to do with the smear campaign that I've been talking about, but gotta deal with it is what I've been told. So they call me a schizo because I've been warning of spiritual war and the importance of energetic protection. This would be the time to get out your tinfoil hat or hairkerchief. I do think a lot of what's been going on is that people are getting possessed. I also think that because of how situations like these have been previously framed up, they're seen as not preventable. And I think they are preventable. But for context, in the last 3 years, it's become standard practice for those around me to tell me the things that I see, hear, and experienced haven't happened to me. And I'd really love to have a conversation with someone who's not trying to hit the same talking points about the same things that I'm not actually interested in. I believed the saying, the cure for pain was love. The reality of the situation is my predicament would have looked a lot different if I hadn't approached it with love. And it's a pretty helpless feeling knowing that you're not an actual criminal but can be persecuted because one or multiple actual ones decide that they don't want to identify as such by using your identity. Victims get charged or put on public display for humiliation here. This isn't an isolated thing. Now you've got a bunch of broken people getting confused from what they've been through, a system that's been bought out for clout, and not enough rational or critical thinking skills to understand that there are better ways to try to fix these problems without resorting to violence. This is why it's important to have a healthy and productive hobby or outlet that focuses on something more positive. I've hypothesized before that I think certain things that are considered mental illness are actually differences in sensory perception. So think of it like in science, atoms vibrate, and they can vibrate slower or faster depending on stimulus or environment. It's a similar concept to the soul. Higher vibration will attract higher vibrational energies to it, lower ones will do the opposite. On the extreme low end, it looks like possession. I know that there are misconceptions about my spiritual practices, and I'm okay with that. But you also can't tell me that I don't have a relationship with God because I don't practice the way that you would. So let me clear something up. I'm not a witch and have far too much Catholic guilt to be the devil. I don't do blood sacrifices or spell work. I have a relationship with God and practice energetic alignment and personal spiritual protection. Spiritual self-defense, if you will. That's why I think the most important practice aside from prayer is what's called a return to sender. It limits the impact of negative energy that gets in, and what can't get in will bounce back. Well, let me show you the nearest signpost to get your heart back up on the road. With strong energetic boundaries, the only harm that ends up being done is to the original sender. The consequence is usually the same as the original intention or intended feeling sent. It's essentially the real life incarnation of do unto others as you would want done to you, and that God sees true intentions. Continue to move with love, live a life of truth, shine in rational authenticity will help keep your spiritual protection up. Free will is being able to choose which path you take. That's why it's important to recognize that every day we're faced with little forks in the road that offer an opportunity of choice. I do, however, have a couple ideas where that could have come from, but who knows? And I can't say there's a lot that surprises me anymore. And I'm not sure if I've ever known the truth about anything or everything because most of it has turned out to be lies. And it's just funny that there's a spectrum and it's barely talked about within that space when my guess is, and this is purely tinfoil hairkerchief theorizing, and I didn't fold. Well, it's not that hard when your hat's sold. So, you know what? I just can't have nice things. I would like to have nice things, but I'm used to it at this point. Why would any nice thing for me not have to go to someone else? When they want it, they just do whatever. So one of my tinfoil hairkerchief theories is that pretty much everyone is being blackmailed, and hot take, if cancel culture, mob mentality, and unwillingness to have conversations with people who do things differently than you do weren't so common, unless you do depraved shit, no one would or should care. It's a thin line between love and hate. Is you really real or is you really fake? Lost, confused souls, not aligned to their highest vibration, devolving into despair, is a high risk of consumption for volatile and negative energy. One of my tinfoil hairkerchief theories is that in the current age, the majority of energetic or deity support is called upon with ill intention. I do think a lot of that has to do with a lot of people still not believing that this stuff is real without practicing some sort of energetic protection. But when I zoomed away from I'm sad I lost my dad because he's going to miss all the things a girl calls her dad for as she's trying to find her way in her adult life, the tunes we'd never jam out to together, the sports we couldn't watch, the refs we couldn't yell at, how I was so close to a good fishing spot and we couldn't just roll out on the boat on a Sunday morning before football, not being able to help me fix stuff around the house, or just random phone calls. He'd miss all the big moments. That part I had come to terms with a lot earlier. I know you've been hurting. He was around for less of my life than he would end up being here for. The other morning, I was missing him a bit, so I went to the cemetery to say hey to him and my grandpa for a few minutes. Doesn't usually have to be long. What I didn't expect to find indications of, we'll call it some sort of dig, which, I don't know, kind of weird if it was done legally and his only child didn't know about it. Also, he was cremated. Like, I want to be mad that the people that are trying to ruin my life are now resorting to digging up deceased family members, but I'm still trying to get over the absolute absurdity of it all. Like, actually depraved behavior. Every day is a choice toward a better version of yourself, but again, I cannot stress enough the importance of operating with good intentions, in love, with empathy and compassion, and treat others as you want to be treated. Because I've also learned that the times that feel the most dim is when love and light is most necessary. And all we can do is hope better days are coming. Tinfoil hairkerchief theories absolutely included. 2 weeks leading up to it, I had already caught a couple people in the middle of the night lurking around my car. I personally think that it's really funny that the same camera is being used to try to incriminate me and keeping track every time I leave the house or when my mail comes would have also picked up the multiple instances of people trying to do these things to me and particularly to my car, but no one's as forthcoming with that footage. I guess it's not as important if it can't be used to frame me. But I guess that doesn't fit as nicely with the whole I'm a menace to society narrative being pushed. You know, whatever. I mean, they keep releasing actual offenders, but I mean, my healing, that's just apparently made me so dangerous. Every morning when you wake, before the first step that you take, say it's all what you make it. Can you make it through? And I mean, I've been on this quest for the last 3 years to help protect innocent and vulnerable people, particularly those who have been subjected to a lot of trauma, letting them know there's hope for healing and raise awareness for mental health. I thought it would be a good time to talk about my current existential crisis, which I do still think I'm handling really well considering, but doesn't mean my whole foundation hasn't been rocked. You never know when you might find out your dad might not have died when you thought he did. You might be a mutant. And now you're not even sure who and what you are. But you don't really know until your blood tests keep going missing. And his grave gets dug up and no one seems to care. And there's a really bizarre reaction to standing too close to a TV. Even though I mostly feel like I play the role of Cinderella locked in the basement, maybe Anastasia trying not to repeat history is more accurate. While people say I don't know what I'm talking about, while also trying to make sure that I quietly don't exist, while also trying to make sure that I'm known for the exact opposite of everything that I actually stand for, gone through such extensive lengths to be hidden. Kinda makes you feel like the last of a bloodline being hunted for sport. Totally a tinfoil hairkerchief theory. The reality is that there are also a lot of people who see someone else being in a hole as a benefit to them and will intentionally keep them there. Especially if the person standing outside of the hole is withholding information that could get the person in the hole out of it, which is also usually a pretty good indicator of who shoved you in to begin with. They tend to gravitate towards those in more vulnerable, stressful, or desperate situations. That's when the power dynamic tends to get abused. Maybe it's just that biblical stories seem like just that, stories. Something that doesn't happen in modern day to regular people. A lot of it I didn't understand until I had a come to God moment for myself. And it has taken multiple reminders that he's beside me at times of waning faith. Purely just a tinfoil hairkerchief theory, and I'm of sound mind and not a danger to myself and others, just for the record. Look, there's long been speculation about who really runs shit behind the scenes of the world and things that happen to people who talk about it. The corralling or extinguishing of the brightest lights, particularly when they start fighting for more autonomy by those who control the power. There have also been speculations over the kinds of things that are done to attain certain levels of power. What if they did do similarly stifling things for regular people who may display some sort of exceptionality? What if they could do it by telling you not to believe in things that were actually real or make you believe in things that aren't? Although I've come to believe there's more validity to the simulation theory conspiracy than I originally thought, I do think the root purpose behind the simulation is spiritual. In this song, there's a line, "Does anybody know how the story really goes, or do we all just hum along?" In my situation, the whole thing got to the point it has because no one actually knew how the story really went and all just hummed along with their torches and pitchforks. Very reflective over the confusion, mob mentality, and automatic presumptions of guilt from increased cancel culture amid fastly fleeting trends. No one ever really does seem to know how the story really goes these days, because if you ask questions, you seem to only get the least cancelable answer. So I just want to recap some of what I covered in the previous episode for some context.
One of the reasons I started talking about the importance of spiritual and energetic protection more in 2025 was because between March and August, there were an increasing number of instances where I was spiritually attacked through the night. It wasn't just usual nightmares, I could feel the energetic escalation, and there were commonalities within the different instances that made this all that more significant. It would always be on certain moon phases or dates of astrological significance, and usually between 3 and 4 a.m. I'd usually spend the next few days ill. It got even weirder when random people started checking in to see how ill I was, though there wouldn't have been reason for them to know I even was. There was a time between April and May that seemed to coincide with another time frame of importance. I was legitimately sicker than I'd ever been in my life for about a month. From that point on, it felt like I was getting hit with spiritual attacks regularly, though they seemed to do less damage to me with the increase in my energetic boundary and my work to maintain my spiritual alignment, which I'd already been working on, but now seems more of a necessity to be able to maintain my overall health. Now keep in in mind this all makes different levels of sense to different people depending on what you believe. Not everyone is always under heavy spiritual attack. Some things are just karma. Not all energies or practitioners are bad or operate in a dark or low vibration, but you'll find a higher concentration of those within certain areas. But if a hot spot pops up or a portal tears open, the best line of defense is a solid energetic boundary fortified by spiritual alignment.
I've found that the strongest spiritual attacks generally involve the most people, due to the level of energy required to be able to harness that kind of strength. The bigger the portal, the lower the vibration, the more demonic shit can get through. Unless you were planning to fuck around and get haunted, but that shouldn't be something you're aspiring to. If that happens, wherever that portal is can very quickly turn into some Invasion of the Body Snatchers type shit. If Invasion of the Body Snatchers was on a hellmouth. But I personally think that increasing spiritual protection can help safeguard against being body snatched. I'm only making this correlation because level of energetic and spiritual protection really has seemed to be the difference maker in my situation. God also helps. True faith in God, not just performative stuff, which I do understand may be a little bit ironic coming from me because of my amalgamation of beliefs that deviate slightly from tradition. Practitioners with the knowledge, skill, and power to send a strong spiritual attack are more likely to do so during times of astrological significance. This is when I personally feel most under attack, and that's what I love about Return to Senders. It's not an attack, it's defense only. But it operates with the same level of force that's being sent at it. That goes back to the original sender. It's essentially karma in energetic form. I know that body snatching and zombies don't sound like assessments based in reality. I get it. At first glance, swap it with demons and it's called possession. Transferable concept, different name. Also, like I mentioned, there are varying levels of possession as well, so it doesn't always look like something as extreme as you'd see in the movies. So there were a couple instances truly under spiritual attack to the point where my life was in jeopardy, which again is a large part about why I think spiritual self-defense is so important. I think it's typically perceived as more occult than it really is or needs to be, but I find my spiritual alignment has just been a bunch of small choices of doing the right thing and trying to be a good person. It doesn't take rituals and harnessing a bunch of energy because it's just very fundamentally my guideline is the 10 Commandments and treating others how you want to be treated, and what you put out into the world you will get back, so try to be a good person. Keep the heart light. I think so. And if you're being regularly spiritually attacked by the same people summoning the same energies, but you're in spiritual alignment and those energies keep choosing not to hurt you, in the 5D, it's going to work more in your favor. The thing I love about the spirit world is it's uncorruptible. You can be rich in spirit and not have a lot of money, or vice versa. But vibrational alignment toward higher vibrational energies, such as love, helps enrich the spirit. And you know what the coolest thing about that is? It's the literal power of love. Does anybody know how the story really goes? How the story really goes? Or do we all just hum along? I'll reiterate that I very much respect and abide by spiritual law. I feel like I have a good connection with God, my ancestors. I have very strong spiritual boundaries and don't allow my energy to go where it's not called or welcome, and is designed to filter out lower vibrational energies, attachments, and any sort of spiritual attack. I don't ask any energies to do anything on my behalf, just for enough guidance and wisdom to help me along my path, and safe travels along the way. I don't go peering into other people's energies, but if there's a strong connection or my energy is being called towards that, I can often feel aspects of what's going on within that. I'd really appreciate not being the price of admission, which is why filters are important to maintain respectful energetic boundaries. Also, strong connections can be good or bad. It's just the strength of the force that's pulling on your energy, at whatever level of vibration it's coming to you in. When there are a lot of people trying to get into your energy, especially if you do something like talk about energetic protection and thin veil perception online, and people want to constantly test your authenticity, that's a significant drain on your energetic field. Even if I wanted to be an intentional energy lurk, I don't have capacity with all the time I spend having to defend myself from incoming spiritual attack. I treat the 5D as sacred space. It's not a boundary I would intentionally cross to someone else unless I understood there to be some reciprocal connection. Increasing my spiritual protection requires more energy from the sender of spiritual attacks to be able to go undetected or infiltrate my energetic field. Although I had felt like I had been getting hit with lower level spiritual attacks for most of the year, there were a couple instances where my spiritual protection is probably the only reason why I survived at all. Two of those instances were consecutive days. There seemed to be only one energy who could get through, and everyone else seemed to be trying to use that energy as a cloak to get in. And that energy had been able to come and go without issue when themselves until the first instance where it felt like I was pulled out of my body into a full force collision, then slammed me back into my body. The next day, in my mind, I was just getting it from behind, but looked up and all of a sudden there was a mirror like I could watch, and eye contact is a bit of a kink for me. Except the two most basic things about being in a dream state and encountering other people are don't make eye contact and don't die. I kept trying to turn my head and not look in the mirror, but there was a big blue hand that looked like it was outlined in glow sticks that was choking me, and it kept trying to make me look in the mirror. Every time we made eye contact, it was like his eyes were windows and I would see flames in them, and they were starting to get bigger. And when I'd managed to turn my head away, they'd fizzle out, but they'd get bigger again when the hand had my neck. I kept trying to yell to look away, but couldn't, and struggled to fight off this hand while I was forced to watch the energy I was connected to melt and scream. It was pretty horrifying at the time because from my perspective, I didn't think I saved him in time. But at least he made it back to this realm from whatever one he was sucked into, and that's what's important. I don't know how I got out of the headlock. I just remember feeling like being grabbed and thrown, and I woke up standing in the middle of my living room 10 feet from where I had laid down to have my self-love moment. Everything's been absolutely chaotic and weird since then, and although agreed that there was a connection, what happened on our respective sides of reality were different, as were our levels of knowledge and understanding about what and how that even all happened. Apparently, every random memory I have from when I was a kid all appear to be extremely relevant now. It wasn't like, oh my god, he's the man of my dreams. More like the one from my dreams. The one I drew a picture of when I was a kid and said, that's the one. I was like 8. I've been looking my whole life. So yeah, I got hook, line, and sinkered. In 2 dimensions. How embarrassing. To be fair, I had the name wrong. I had written Sheldon. Just out here looking like a Big Bang tinfoil hairkerchief theory. And although I had been planning a little bit of a side project where I would take a dive into some tinfoil hairkerchief theories, not going to be able to now, which I want to be mad about, but also at the same time kind of proves a lot of my points. So what is that? Like the third one now? Come on. But apparently what they're doing isn't wrong, and I'm going to get pulled off of everything instead. I hope you've gained something positive from my content, and I hope you've enjoyed it in some way. I do hope you know that if I was trying to be a musician, I would have actually learned how to play the keyboard, but I just kind of wanted to talk about mental health and my journey, and in hopes that it might help someone else along the way. So just don't forget, keep the peace and keep rocking on. Thanks for watching.